She was like, and if you're actually going to make a difference in a lot of people's lives, there's going to be an equal and opposing force of people who want to reject that. And she's like, this just comes with the territory of like how big of an impact you want to have. And it was just such a great, wife talking to husband, conversation. That I guess for me at the end of the day, I'm like, as long as she thinks I'm cool, like,
Yeah.
I'll keep doing it. But yeah, it was just because the diluted down version all of a sudden becomes everyone else's stuff.
Well, you said a second ago you're not sure why that is, but by very definition of it being unique, that means that there is no blueprint.
Yeah.
There is no person that's come before you and proven that it works. So the courage of being yourself, there's only one Stephen Bartlett. So if I'm truly myself, it's never been done before. That means that the risks are unknown. The upside's also unknown.
Yeah.
But so again, going back to our hate of uncertainty, it makes much more sense for me to try and copy you because I can see a blueprint there than to run the risk of being yourself. And you are someone, I have to say, who is running the risk of being yourself. And actually, as someone who's observing you,
Mm-hmm.
now I know who you are and I now know who you're not.
Mm.
And it's important for me as someone that follows your work
Yeah.
that actually I see consistency because I've established Alex Hormozi's values.
Yeah.
And anything that diverts from that is actually less valuable because, as you say, it's more like everyone else and the things I've had before. But it's also, it wouldn't feel true anymore.
Yeah.
And this is something that even as a creator myself, I have to fall back on is my audience know who I am now, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
They're not going to learn anything new.
Yeah. What's really interesting is navigating the gray. And so there are contradictory ideals. And this is what I kind of come back to when I'm like worried about these types of things, which is like you've got mercy and you've got justice. They're somehow opposed and they are both ideals. So how can we believe in justice and also believe in mercy at the same time? And so, and I mean, there's a number, you can have variety and consistency. Like there's tons of examples of this, right? And so we have these diametrically opposed ideals, which means that if you ever say, by the way, I'm a little bit more of a justice guy. Like, I understand they had a hard time, but at some point you got to take your own personal accountability. So like, no, you're not going to get out of the speeding ticket. You're going to get like, that's what's just. On the other hand, it's like, hey, single mom gets pulled over for driving too fast. You know what? Maybe we let her off today. Both of those stories, fair, but you're going to get attacked by the other side that has an ideal that all humans try to strive for, and it will feel terrible because they are right, and so what? And so I think that like understanding that conflict will always exist between two apparent ideals that, and this is foundationally what politics is, right?
Yeah.
Is that there are two apparent ideals that all of us, I would say 99% of people would say justice is good, mercy is good, variety is good, consistency is good, right? Respecting values is good, so is innovating and doing new things.
Mm-hmm.
How can we have both of these contradictory ideas and at the same time like navigate that without conflict? You can't, because how much becomes the question. And so I think that your thumbprint as a creator is that when someone presents a scenario and says, does Alex choose mercy or justice in this scenario, that your audience says, gets it right. And so I think about branding in general as basically a mosaic that you get to create. And so like each piece of content is a little tile that has a single color on it. And if you just see one piece of short content of Stephen Bartlett, you don't really have an idea who Stephen Bartlett is. But if you see 1,000 of them, all of a sudden you zoom out and you get to see the whole picture. And I think that the colors that are in those mosaics and the proportion of how many yellows, how many reds, how many greens, and where are they is what ultimately creates the brand. Mm-hmm. And so, because people want to try and turn this into, okay, so I make one post about family, I make one post about finances, I make one post about whatever, right? It's like, I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
I think you just be you, and then those proportions will naturally shake out. And also over time, you will change. And so it also makes sense that your brand will change.
Yeah.
And that was also another thing that I had to reconcile, which is like, wait, I don't know if I agree as much with some of the things that I said 10 years ago. Because the thing is, in the digital world, like my first podcast was 2017, July of 2017.
Wow.
Episode 8 is called Stop Branding. I have changed my views on branding, to be clear.
Yeah.
But that first podcast is 90 days from when I lost everything. And so the entire like Hormozi journey, if you want to call that, from 0 to billion, is actually documented 90 days from 0. It's all there. And so you can see how my views on business have changed and like what I was thinking about at every kind of portion of my life. And so I had to just be okay with the idea that like I will change my mind because I will get new information. Because let's take the alternative stance. If I get new information, do I just keep parroting what you did before? This is also an issue with politics,
Yeah.
right? Is that like he's flippy floppy? It's like, so they're not allowed to learn?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yes,
you've been in politics for 20, like you haven't learned anything, like no stances changed. Like I feel like we should be able to do that. And obviously brands don't work that way. So it has to be gradual over time, which I think if you are always you at all times, it will be gradual over time.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of the time we end up over focusing on unreasonable people, which is a war we can never win anyway.
Yeah.
Because first, you say that to me, I think, I think it was like I had this guy, the therapist on my podcast, who I then spoke to after the podcast, and he basically broke it down to me. He was like, there's 20% of people that just absolutely love everything you will ever do.
Yeah.
Like you could say anything, you change them, they're just super fans.
Yeah.
There's 80% of people that are actually like, he said there's 60% of people
Yeah.
that are really reasonable.
Yeah.
They don't speak.
Yeah.
They just watch, they're like reasonable
silent
human beings.
majority, yeah.
And then there's 20% of people with no matter what the fuck you do, they're gonna be. This is like, don't spend your life focusing on the
Yeah.
the 20%. The quiet majority, the 60%, they don't tweet, they
Yeah.
just chill. And then the 20%, they're your evangelists. But I find myself falling into the trap of
So what's interesting about the 20% is that like I was thinking about this today. So no matter who you are, you're going to be disliked, period. Because no one's liked by everyone. So we just have to like listen. If we can accept that as a premise, right? No one's gonna be liked by everyone. You might as well be disliked for being you than being somebody else.
amen.
Right? Like,
Amen.
at the most basic level.
Yeah.
The being disliked is a fixed cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think to take the opposite perspective, I think it is far better to be disliked for being who you are than loved for someone you're not.
Yeah. And one of the great entrepreneurs I interviewed on the podcast said to me, when it comes to marketing and branding and this sort of
Yeah.
attention conversation we're having, she said to me that in order to reach your 80%, you have to piss off your 20%, or at least be willing to piss off your 20%. It was
Yeah.
Jane Warung, who's the founder of Double global beauty
Oh, interesting.
brand with I think hundreds of thousands of people. And she sat and said, to get to your 80%, you
Yeah.
have to be willing to piss off. No, actually, fuck. She said, to get to your 20%, you have to be willing to piss off the 80%.
Mm.
And from a branding perspective, it makes so much sense because when you stand for something clearly,
Yeah.
which you do, you inadvertently stand against a
You
ton.
have to. If you draw a line, there's a side on either side, and you have to say like I'm on this side.
Did you see that Nike ad?
Dude, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, the Willem Dafoe ad.
Yeah.
Like what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like it was actually the first time that I'd seen something from Nike in a long time that I was like, this is what built this brand. And I think they had lost their way for a while.
Yeah.
With like the wokeism and all that stuff. And I think it's like Nike means victory, which means people have to lose.
Yeah. And they were willing to say that for the first time ever.
Right.
I posted it on my LinkedIn and it was 50-50.
Yeah.
I'd say it was actually more like 80% of people were either neutral or pissed off. And 20%,
Really?
yeah, and 20% of people were like, that is me. I am a Nike person. And for me, when I saw that, I thought I want to buy some Nike shorts.
Yeah, it was the first time I actually felt like I had positive brand affinity towards the brand in a long time.
How important in this game of building and starting is people?
Very?
A hiring question.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I asked this question, because when I look at my portfolio,
Yeah.
early stage first founders never seem to understand the importance of hiring in people.
Yeah.
And I bang my head against the wall trying to convince them that actually the game they're playing is
a
in the
recruiting
word
game.
company,
Yeah.
group of people.
Yeah. So I'll start with one thing and then I'll answer the question. So I was talking to a mentor of mine, and he said, when I was in my 20s, it was all about the destination. He said, when I got to my 30s, I realized it was all about the journey. He said, when I was in my 40s, I realized it was about the company. And I was like, I can't wait till you're in your 50s. I was like, what's the next one, right? But I thought that was such a profound shift in terms of how he thought about his business success, because he was like, I don't need to be a decabillionaire. He's like, I'm cool where I'm at. And now I just want to do it with people that I like. And so to the question about people overall, I believe that the potential of an organization is directly correlated with the aggregate intellectual horsepower of everyone contained within it. And so if you are the smartest person in the business, and you can do everyone's job better than everyone in your company, then it means that the limit of the business is purely based on one person's horsepower and one person's life experiences. And that will be the cap. And basically, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you can't live 100 lifetimes. Like you can learn quickly, sure, there's some people who can learn faster than others, but you're not going to be able to live 1,000 lifetimes. And so as a business grows, more expertise is required. And I think the easiest litmus test for this is if you look at the richest people in the world, almost none of them own 100% of their business. So number one.